Hello, everybody! Welcome back to the Prog Connection, and in today's video, we are introducing a brand new guest and a new member to this entire video web series, and he's seen yes a good few times, but I think I should let him take over. Phil, how are we doing here, bud?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to join you on this show.
I'm glad you could join. If there's anything that you want to tell the audience about yourself, now's the time.
Well, been a Prog fan for about 10 years. Been a Yes fan for about as long. Technically 11 years for Prog because my first Prog band was Styx. Got into them the year previously. I have seen Yes 5 times. All of them have been since Chris Squire died, but each show has been phenomenal. And that's really all I've got. I don't know how this usually goes, but I have a pile of CDs right here next to me that I have arranged in the order that we're talking about them in.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw it to everyone from time to time. I just want to make sure that this feels a little bit more like a conversation. We're not really trying to be like these guys are powered on the metal. We're not trying to say these guys are definitively better than the other guys on our list. We're just trying to say we like these 10-ish bands, and we're gonna start. How about we start with Phil? Eh? Why not?
Okay. I have my list on my phone because I wrote it down. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 4 honorable mentions to briefly touch on. That bands. I had a rule when it came to making this list. I had 2 rules. The first one was they were bands that I had to I have to own on either CD or vinyl, but mostly CD because I rarely collect vinyl. I had to own at least half of their discography, on physical media. And the other rule was I had to have listened to most of their discography in general. And so these are bands that I love that for one reason or another did not qualify because they did not fit within those guidelines.
Okay.
So the first one I'm going to talk about is a band. I don't know how many of you know. They are a more recent prog band. They're called The Deer Hunter.
I've heard of them. I don't know anything by them, but I've heard of them. I haven't actually heard any of the music albums yet, but I hear they're very popular. It's a bucket list thing that I need to do within the next year. Everyone keeps saying, you got to hear Deer Hunter. You got to hear. I know the singer's name's Casey or something like that.
I believe so. I'm bad with names, so I don't remember his name off the top of my head. They're kind of like another band that I'm going to talk about in that did make the list. In that the majority of their work is a long series of concept albums that tell a story. And it's all one cohesive story, one chapter to the next. They're supposed to be they're supposed to be 6 chapters. They have released 5. And infuriatingly, they have not put out a 6th one. The number 5 was released back in, I want to say, 2018. And since then, they have started on a new series of concept albums that is entirely unrelated, having not finished the previous series of concept albums. And it's infuriating, but at the same time, I can't be mad at it because the music is still so good.
It's building hype. I think that's why they're doing it, because they know fans want it, and the longer they delay it, they honestly feel that if the last one is not good, the longer fans are waiting for it, the reception is probably going to be, oh, this is a masterpiece, regardless if
Yeah.
if they release it right away and it equal. I think most people call chapter 4 or 5. I think it's 4 the goat. I'm not sure. One of those two, 4 or 5.
Both of them are both chapters 4 and 5. Both acts. That's what they are. Acts 4, Act 5. They're both really good. All of their act series are really good. I definitely recommend anybody who is into prog and more into the newer, more experimental side of prog. Definitely, it's worth checking out.
All right. Next.
All right.
Yeah.
My next one
Mhm.
I'll briefly touch on is a prog band. I don't know if you consider it a super group or not, but it's Frost.
Oh, yeah. Kind of a super group in a way, yeah.
John Mitchell, fantastic guitar player,
Of course.
excellent in It Bites,
True.
excellent in Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Most recently, excellent in Asia.
He's
I've
good in
not heard-
Kino. Have you ever heard of Kino? I think he's in Kino. They did like one album in 2005, and then years later they made a follow up.
I know the name. I know nothing about them.
You should check out. I think it's got John Mitchell, or one of the members of Frost. I think it's John Mitchell. Is in a band called KINO. If you go into Prog Archives, like their debut album, like it has a picture of like a movie theater. I think Popcorn's on. I don't remember. I don't own it. I used to. Lost it in the move, but it was considered like a god tier album in 2000.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, started listening to Frost with their third album.
Mm-hmm.
I forget its fucking name.
Experiment in Massive Hills. I don't.
No, that was. It was the one. It was the one with the white cover with the like maze looking design on it.
I forget the name.
I think it was like Falling Satellites or something, but that one was really fucking good. That one was really good. The album following that was excellent. And I know they have another album coming out this year, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah, the one that they did that's before this is called I forget the name of it. But apparently the story is like a continuation.
Okay. My next honorable mention is you should appreciate this because it's right in your own backyard almost. Mystery.
Oh
I've
yeah,
heard it.
from
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good
Benoit
Canadian
David.
band.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got the singer of one of the
Yeah. Benoit David.
Those are the best albums, are the ones with him on it. But
I agree. I have not heard the albums from before their first with Benoit, but those three, Beneath the Veil of Winter's Face, One Among the Living, and The World is a Game, are all three stellar. And I particularly like The World is a Game because they got Nick DiVirgilio on drums.
I see.
And then obviously Benoit left in 2013 and retired from music. They got a new singer, and they released Delusion Reign in 2015, which was excellent, and Lies and Butterflies.
That's
fantastic. The one I know they released Redemption in 2023. I have not actually listened to that one.
I've heard it. I'm not really a big fan of it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people liked it. I didn't. It just, like I told you, they're one of those bands. You like one album, and some of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Benoit David era, all of them, those are all masterpieces.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know he's gonna mention Glass Hammer somewhere. I know. maybe not.
I wanted to, but most of what I know with Glass Hammer is the John Davison era, and then like the album that came right after that, and like a couple of albums before that, but I listened to less than half of their catalog. So they could not, unfortunately, make the list. I have one final honorable mention that unfortunately also did not make the list.
All right.
For the same reason as Glass Hammer, but I love them to death from what I've heard. I have seen them live once last year. Amazing show.
Yeah.
And I actually also saw them on Cruise to the Edge this past March. So, and that band is Riverside.
Nice. Yeah.
Very good, man. ADHD is my favorite, and then
That's great.
my second favorite now is Zoltan told me to re-listen to it was the Blood Time Machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have not actually. The most of what I've listened to from them is their last album before their keyboard player. What's wrong with me? Guitar player who I do not know how to pronounce any of the band members' names at all.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
Because they're Polish.
Well, fair.
Go figure.
Makes sense.
So most of what I know from them is from Love, Fear, and the Time Machine. That was their last album with their previous guitar player before his untimely demise. Wasteland was really good. And the ID Entity.
That's
that
a really
album.
good album.
That's fantastic album. It was, some of it almost struck me as like their kind of Invisible Touch a little bit, but instead of it being like very poppy, it was just they took the synths, they integrated them into their prog sound, and almost made it like a little bit of a power metal type of sound without it like being metal.
Not
And
bad.
it worked.
Interesting.
It worked.
I think, John, you want to go with your honorable mentions first?
Yeah, I got like 5, but
All right, run through them
Okay.
quick.
I thought I went on too long.
mine won't take long at all because most people don't know who these bands are. One of them, an honorable mention, is a band Atoll. I have a few props on with me, a few of them I don't. Atoll is a French band. They're out from the 70s. I believe they have 3 albums, where the second album is my favorite. And to be honest with you, if I was to have like a top 5 or top 10 70s album, this would be in there. My second honorable mention is I had the CD in one of these crates right here. I knew about the band since 2006. The band's from Belgium. They're like a neo-prog band. Very, very good. The vocalist is got like an accented style, the way he sings. They're called Mind Game. Actors in a Play is from 2006. That was my first exposure to the band. It's probably my favorite one. And then I got a new one that just came out this year. I don't remember the name of it, but it's like it's a concept album. And it's very, very good. If you never heard of that band, they're called Mind Games. Like they're from Belgium. My third honorable mention is a lot of people don't know this band. I don't remember where they're from, but they came out around the 70s and they were very popular in a way and they kind of were over the years in the prog scene. These two bands actually went head to head in a way. They're kind of like a prog fusion band. They're called Sensations Fix. Don't know if anyone's ever heard of that band, but a lot of people also like Secret Oyster. They're like a German fusion. I think Sensations Fix from Italy, and if they're not, people will correct me in the comments. The next honorable mention is a band from Sweden. They did one album in the 80s. It's called the band's called Cultivator with a K. They did an album called Bartleman's Cigar, something like that. 1981. It's like they were one and done. Very good. And my last honorable mention is a Japanese keyboard player that I heard played on Arl Moon from Tom Gagliardi years ago. And a shout out to him. He used to do. He still does Gagley Archives, but he did a show that was separate from Gagley Archives, where he did mainly bands from certain countries, and I was like at least 18, maybe 20 years old when I first heard of this guy, and God, do I wish I had the CD by the one, and it's very hard to get.
Mhm.
And the album's called Milk Time, and to me, a lot of people say Keith Emerson is very good. Hiro Yanagita. If you not heard Milk Time, I would say that Hiro Yanagita rings around Keith Emerson in a way, and I'm probably going to be assassinated for that. Right? I think he's got
That is
a better
very strong
tone.
claim.
It's
Right.
very strong. I mean, a lot of people like Emerson, but I mean, he's not a bad keyboard player. I just feel that, I mean, even Hiro Yanagita did 2 or 3 albums also, so I really can't complain where they only had a short-lived time frame. And me going on into Emerson, I could go on to that discussion another day on why. There's several reasons. I feel Emerson was kind of held back. I honestly felt like he did very good epics and compositions, but also as a band group, I was preferred if he went more solo in a way and composed more epics. That's where I like Emerson. I feel that's his strongest point. But the rest of the albums, the material on the ELP, they're kind of short.
Mm.
So in a way, he is a good composer, but I feel he didn't really get to continue to do what he wanted to do. And those are my honorable mentions. But
All
that's
right.
my little short little stint on Emerson. No offense, anybody.
Dad, go ahead. Your honorable mentions.
I would say that, you know, how does a band end up in an honorable mention? For me, it's that they have a light discography. In other words, not a lot of albums, or that some of them stray way out of what people would consider their core sound.
Mm-hmm.
So my first honorable mention is UK.
Go
Of
on.
course.
In the Dead of Night, or the first UK album, is a classic, probably worthy of a top 20 or top 30 prog album of all time.
Yeah.
I could agree with that.
But unfortunately, they have a very short discography. They're limited in that way.
And we all know Alan Holdsworth is on both of those, correct?
No,
Or what?
he's on only one of them. The first one.
Okay.
There
On
is
the
no
first one.
guitarist on the second one.
My bad. Who's the guitar player on the second album?
There
I
is
thought he was
none.
on both.
There's none. It's just Jobson,
There's none?
Wetton.
Wow.
It's just Jobson, Wetton, and help me out, Bosio.
And the second one's called Danger Money, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Also fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard it, but I've not heard it in so long. I thought we heard it like maybe once or twice in my lifetime. I've heard it in a Dead of Night more than I heard Danger Money. Now I got to go hear Danger Money.
It's really
'Cause
good.
I always thought Holdsworth is fun, and he's not. Now I got to re-listen to this.
No, it's just got
There's
Jobson
no
and he's got his
there's no
violin.
guitar player, which to me is perfectly fine. So
It's most of the guitar playing is taken up by electric violin, if I'm not mistaken, because of Jobson.
Yeah.
Was Johnson on I think he's on both, right? Or
Yeah, he is. He is.
yeah. Now we all got to take a drink. There's a Sea of Tranquility guy that loves Eddie Jobson so much, Anthony Ferraro. Anytime to mention name Eddie Jobson, we all got to take. If you don't have a drink near you, forget. Or this is probably the only time we mentioned Eddie Jobson on his drink.
well,
Go
I'm
on.
an Eddie Jobson fanatic as well.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the greats. It's just, I love him.
Yeah.
So while we're in the sort of ballpark of great keyboard players, I will move on to my second honorable mention. Again, for the reason that the discography is a little light in terms of, especially in terms of sort of prog rock. It's more of a discography that floats off, and I will mention the band Saga.
Ah.
I love Jim Gilmore's keyboard playing, but Saga does not, throughout their discography, does not stick to being a prog rock band. They're often more of a sort of a I guess an AOR rock band maybe. Some of the
They
songs
did
are not-
kind of go more that route during the mid 80s into the 90s.
Yeah.
yeah, not very successfully in my opinion, but
No.
they're not
No.
great. I mean, I don't
No.
mind that they go in that direction, but if you can make really great albums, fine. But
Yeah.
they don't really suit to do that. They should have stuck to the style that they had in around 1980 with albums like Worlds Apart and Silent Night. Those are
Right.
my favorite albums, and I love that style. And Jim Gilmore was absolutely fantastic there on keyboards, and he's one of my all-time favorite keyboard players. So those are my two honorable mentions: Zoe, Saga, and UK.
All right. So
Good.
I think I'll get to my honorable mentions, and I feel so bad for mentioning all 4 of these, and because I have a lot of connection with all 4 of these bands, and I'm not going in any particular order. I didn't want to mention this one first, but at the same time, it's the first one up. It Bites. I absolutely
Yes.
love all the Dunnery. Well, except for Eat Me in St. Louis, I'm not a fan. And I love Return to Natural. It's very good. I think that this is the cream of the crop for me, but I would say the John Mitchell era is about as strong. It's very good. They didn't make the top because, again, for similar reasons that UK for Dad isn't here. They're here. I just think that there's a couple albums in this discography that just hold them from being top tier. They only have about 3 or maybe 4 albums that are so good that there you go. My second one.
I think they only have 5 albums in their whole catalog.
Yeah, exactly. So there's my problem. I only like about 3. So, the next, Haken. This is a fantastic band. I have absolutely loved almost everything they've released recently. Mountain and the most recent one, Fauna, I believe it's called, has been.
I think that's the
It's-
top 2.
That was really, really, really good. I do think that Hector and Virus are very good. Vector. Sorry, Hector. That's a game. Vector is good. I gotta take that out in editing. Whoops. But I really, really do enjoy a lot of material on this album. Fauna's fantastic. I wish I had a little bit more of their catalog. I love the EP that they released after the Mountain album, which is also really good. I think it features Mike Portnoy for literally one sound on the entire album, and it's the gong at the end of the epic. Which is so funny. That's awesome. What a funny little cameo. Another one that Dad mentioned, actually, Saga, did not make the list. I love Saga. This band has so much in my childhood. Silent Night is fantastic. Images at Twilight is also so good. They're basically identical albums. Worlds Apart is also really good. And some of the newer discography, like a whole House of Cards, is great.
I own 2 albums by
The
Saga.
Human-
Like,
I love The Human Condition. I think it's got a lot of really great moments. And then my last honorable mention, and these guys have a short discography as well. I love at least 3 of their albums. Maybe not so much their later releases, but I haven't checked out the 2000s release. FM from Canada. These guys are really cool.
Black Noise.
Black Noise is fantastic. I like direct to disc.
Directed disc.
And I think the other 2 after that, those ones, I can't remember what they're called right now.
One
But
of
those
them,
2 are also really good.
one of them's like an AOR sound. I think it came out in like 2005 or 6 or something, or 9. It's not a bad album. Or
City of Fear, I
2006.
think it's called.
It's what?
City of Fear is one of them.
I just know it came out in the late 2000s. It's not a bad album.
That one's pretty good, Zoe. But the one after that is I mean, they tried to do the Phil Collins kind of thing and
Yeah.
didn't really work that well. I don't.
Mm.
And then they may have come back with something more recently. I don't know, but
Mm.
I think that they did, but I'm not sure of it. So,
Yeah. All right.
but
So
good choice nonetheless.
yeah. Everyone ready to do the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. All right. Phil, why not you start off with your 10th?
Okay.
Yeah.
At number 10, I have Coheed and Cambria.
Oh yeah.
A little bit more on the side of like post-hardcore, so they're more in the punk side of the music spectrum, but there is enough prog in there to qualify them for something like this, and it's there's enough prog in there to qualify them for a spot on Prog Archives. So
And they are. They beg to differ, but I only heard like 1 or 2 albums, not for me. Same with Mars Volta. I
Yeah.
would
Same with
argue
Mars
that
Volta
Mars
for me
Volta
too.
would have more of a prog sound than Coheed, but like I said,
I only know one Mars Volta album, and it's the first one. I've heard some bits and pieces of their new album that came out when they reformed, and I believe my feelings on that was it sounds like if Justin Timberlake went prog,
Yeah.
Oh.
which I guess take this how you will, but I actually like Justin Timberlake, so.
Yeah, he's got a decent voice, so I won't shit on him.
Back to Coheed. Like the Deer Hunter, which I mentioned in my honorable mentions, they are a band that is pretty much known for releasing concept albums that tell a story. And in Coheed's case, it is a science fiction story. Basically, like, I've heard some people compare them to Rush from 2112, but surprisingly, Rush was never an influence for them. They didn't even start listening to Rush until after the band had already formed.
Huh.
And so, like, essentially, the concept for the albums was based on a comic book series that the lead singer and guitar player wrote. So he took his ideas for that and turned them into lyrics for songs. It's a real you really can't follow the story very well without some like pointers and like some like outside material. But fortunately, the songs are generally good enough that it doesn't matter.
All right.
Like the only album of theirs I don't own is their 5th album, Year of the Black Rainbow.
I see.
And the only album that they've released that doesn't follow this exact story in some form or another, it's called the Amory Wars Saga, is their 2015 album, I want to say, Color Before the Sun, and that's just a straight ahead rock album.
Well, there you go.
But like every one of their albums has at least something of value, and I recommend like go into them with an open mind. If you can tolerate the singer, which I like the singer, I know some people who don't. It's a fun time.
Okay. John?
Okay, well, to be honest with you, I picked my top 10, but to be honest with you, my top 5 or 6 are in sequential order. The last 4 are not.
That's fine.
But my number 10 is a Finnish band from Finland. They have a lot of albums out, and they also have like little side bands that are very good. To me, they're like literally the equivalent to the Flower Kings, but they had guest musicians on all their stuff on different albums, like Steve Unruh, kind of like a little more folk. The band I'm referencing is Samurai Prague. If you've not heard of this band, if you're a Flower Kings fan and most of your stuff is not on streaming, you're gonna have to order the stuff, and most of it's hard to
Kind
get.
of like Glass Hammer.
Oh yeah, they're not on streaming, yeah, and they're kind of hard to get some of the Samurai Prog stuff. Then
Well,
now they
here's
had
one
a
thing.
couple. Go ahead.
Glass Hammer recently put all of their music on Bandcamp for people to buy. Maybe this group did the same thing. I don't know, but it's worth a look.
They might. I don't really know if they did put their stuff on Bandcamp. They
I'd
might.
love that.
I'm not sure.
That'd be great. All
But
right.
I own a lot of stuff by them.
Yeah. All right. Dad?
At number 10, I have Rush.
Ah, okay.
I know we did our countdown of the Rush albums,
Yes, we did.
and you know, I certainly grew to like Snakes and Arrows more than I had before,
Yeah, me too.
and I still love Permanent Waves, but overall, I would say that my overall feeling on Rush is that it's kind of like it's not as great as I used to think it was. So,
Right.
still in the top 10, but
Right.
it's just not something I want to listen to a ton anymore. It's
Right.
just, obviously there's there's memories associated with albums from a certain era.
Mm.
So Rush is almost a nostalgic pick, right?
Right.
From when I was a younger person.
Makes sense.
I'm happy with that. Rush is number 10 for me.
My number 10 is going to be a more recent band. I'm going to go with Riverside. I really, really enjoy a lot of the material here. I absolutely adore almost every single part of this album. It is so good. I like a good bit of their back catalog, and most of their recent catalog has been just really good. I loved Wasteland. I think Shrine of New Generation Slaves is very good. I think I haven't listened to Identity in full. But I'm going to. But generally speaking, I think that this band is worthy enough of being in my top 10. So, Phil, you're 9.
At number 9, I put Kansas.
Ooh. All right.
Yes, America's first true claim to fame in progressive rock. Kansas. Obviously, everybody knows Carry On Wayward Son.
Yep.
Everybody knows Point of No Return. Everybody knows Dust in the Wind. And those are all fantastic songs. The albums that they're on are masterpieces from beginning to end. They have so many other great songs and albums. Their debut album starts the career off with a bang. Song for America is fantastic, both the album and the song itself. The only era of the band I am not a huge fan of is the early 80s stuff when Steve Walsh left and they got in with John Elefante, and Kerry Livgren was really into the whole born-again Christian stuff and suffusing that into the lyrics of the albums with the help of John Elefante, who was also, I believe, a born-again Christian as well. Final Confessions is good, but it's not fantastic.
Yeah.
And the album after that, I think, is the worst album they've ever put out.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Which one?
I'm talking about the Christian rock era.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not really a big
was-
fan of those that much either, to be honest. They're
It
good,
was-
but not as good as Seven.
I don't have the albums on my.
That's
I don't
fair.
have those albums on CD, but fortunately they came back with Steve Walsh and Steve Morse
Yep.
for 2 albums in the 80s with Power, which was a great album. I don't have Freaks of Nature, but I have heard it and it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then skipping over the next 2 releases because they're kind of One of them is just a re-recording of older songs with an orchestra,
Right.
and the other one is a pretty forgettable album. Then, Steve Walsh ends up leaving, and they get Ronnie Platt to replace him. And
Yeah.
this is a prime example of why I laugh at people who don't give bands who replace their lead singers a chance because they are stupid. The 2 albums that they have had with Ronnie Platt are some of the best Kansas music that they've ever put out.
I never heard of those. I need to check.
You do.
All right.
Like they're the best albums Kansas has put out since like Monolith.
I love Monolith. Like Monolith's my
Monolith
second
is fantastic.
I'm gonna have to check all of that out. John, you good for number 9?
Yeah, my number 9 is a 70s band out of Norway. They're called Rufus, Ruphus. They got like 6 albums. The first couple, 3, I believe, they're very prog rock style, and the last 2 or 3 are more on the fusion side. Now, I do believe the lineup, there was a female singer on one, and then they had a male vocalist on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I own a couple of the albums on vinyl. But they're in the chest behind me. I don't feel like going through all that. But anyhow, I do plan to get the rest of their stuff on CD because they have recently reissued them. And like I said, they're a band from the 70s. So for a band to get into my top 10, I had to put some 70s stuff in here. It's probably the whole world. Like, what on earth? You can't just put everything on.
Right.
But yeah, Rufus, number 9.
Dad, you're 9?
I will go with a classic prog band for number 9. I will go with Jethro Tull.
Ah.
Good pick.
In my younger days, I would have put them much, much higher. I would have said when I was, 15 or 16 years old, I would have probably put them as number 2 or number 3, something like that.
Yeah.
I was a very much of a Tull fanatic through high school and after that, but some of it doesn't stand up as much, and they certainly haven't done anything great recently. But the classic albums like Thick as a Brick and Minstrel in the Gallery, Stormwatch is probably the most underrated of the Tull albums. I mean, that's a fantastic album. So I mean, on those classic mid-70s sort of folky rock albums like Songs from the Wood make it for sure that they're worthy of top 10 greatest prog bands ever. So number 9 for me is Jethro Tull.
All right. So my number 9 is going to... they're one of the original supergroups. Maybe the original prog rock supergroup. It depends on who you ask. It's ELP.
ELP.
I really do think that this is a good band, and I think that they have a lot of really gold stuff, but I think that they're a band that I think has albums that people just don't look at because they're not in the main discography. For example, Emerson, Lake and Powell is very good. That entire album music is written entirely by Keith Emerson. So it's basically a Keith Emerson album with Greg Lake and Cozy Powell. So, I mean, you can't really go wrong there. Yeah, rest in peace, all 3. That's so sad. But I will say this about ELP. As much as I think that these guys are worthy of some of the praise that they get, I think that they are a flawed band with a flawed discography.
Very good.
I will say this. I don't think there's any. I'm gonna talk more about ELP when we do the worst to best of them sometime. But I have some very controversial things to say about ELP, and I'm just going to say, even for me, a masterpiece like Trilogy has its flaws. But ELP for me is my number 9, and I think I'm gonna keep them there. Phil, you're number 8.
Okay. At number 8, I have Sweden's very own Opeth.
Ooh.
I'm not a huge fan of death metal by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I didn't really listen to death metal before getting into those albums from Opeth. I actually started with Opeth on 2 albums. Pale Communion, and Damnation.
Yeah, those are
Oh,
great.
Both
good.
of them are fantastic albums
Both
from beginning to
fantastic.
end.
Classic prog.
I went
I'd say.
back. I went back to Blackwater Park. The death metal elements were a little bit rough to begin with, but the music was so good. The clean singing was so good. I kept listening to them. Eventually, it didn't bother me anymore, and I actually grew to love his death metal growls. Blackwater Park is a fantastic album. Still Life is another amazing album. Ghost Reveries, Watershed, and even going into the prog era. I know a lot of people shit on the prog era with albums like Sorceress
I
and
won't.
Heritage. I
Oh.
think
I will,
I
Zoe.
think they're all
I will.
great albums. I think that In Cauda Venenum, the album from, was it 2019?
Yeah,
Is that
I
when
own
that
that.
came
That's
out?
a really good. The Swedish vocals one's the best one because
God.
of the original.
One of the best albums they've ever put out. And something that I didn't expect, if you listen to the new song they put out a couple weeks back, they're reintegrating the death metal growls for the first time since Watershed.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be it's supposed to be a concept album, which I don't think they've done a concept album like that since Still Life.
Oh,
So
that would be an interesting thing to see.
I will say the only negative I have with Opeth were the first 3 albums when they were.
I would
still
agree.
going. The first 2, Orchid and Morning Rise, the songwriting isn't as good. I'd say Orchid is actually their worst album.
Yeah, me too.
But
I agree.
like,
It's,
there are moments on it where it's still good.
yeah,
There's some piano moments on that thing that are immaculate.
yeah. Same
And
with Morning
then-
Rise too.
Same with Morning Rise, but it's a little bit too black metal, especially in the production.
True.
And then the
Once-
third album, My Arms, Your Hearse, is a little bit better.
It's got the
Oh, it's
elements of Opeth to come that would be really
Yes.
good.
The vocals are hot trash.
Oh,
To be fair to Mikhail Ackerfeld,
yeah.
he said in a more recent like Spotify podcast interview type thing that he recorded those vocals while he was sick with the flu.
Oh,
And okay, I can understand that and I can give him a pass a little bit. The problem is it sounds like they were recorded by somebody who has the flu.
John, number 8.
Number 8 is out of Canada, in my honest opinion, it's literally the top. My favorite '70s album of all time is by this band. It's their second album. They're out of Canada. I believe they're out of the Quebec area. The band I'm talking about is Harmonium.
Ooh,
The Less Sanct Seasons album. If you translate it, the word, however you pronounce it, it means 5 seasons. And then I love this band. And then they got like 3 albums, I believe. The first one is more on a prog folk side, but that's the second one is the god tier masterpiece. And then while you're listening to this album, and most people, I don't know if this is the favorite part of the album, is where they do that yodeling, which reminds me of like focus, but where you hear on this album, I'm sure you and your
I'd
dad heard
accept
it.
that,
when
but
you're going-
Discord would fuck it up for me.
you and your father probably heard the part on that this harmonium album where it goes do 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 do, and then it's like all acoustic piano
yeah.
and they're tapping and oh my god, it's like the greatest part of that album, and it's my favorite '70s album of all time. It's like once I heard this at the age of like 22, maybe 23, and people were talking about it, like it's been my favorite like '70s prog album
All right.
of all times, and for like
Nice.
almost 20 years now.
Hmm.
So that would be my number 8. Yeah.
All right. Dad, you're number 8.
Again, sticking with my theme of 70s classic prog bands. At number 8, I will put Van de Graaff Generator.
I see.
Van de Graaff Generator for me is a classic band that you could put on at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you could put them on at 9 o'clock at night, and they always sound good. I love Hugh Banton's organ playing. He's a fantastic organ player. And Peter Hamill is one of my top 2-3 vocalists ever. I just love his operatic, weird singing.
Right.
An acquired taste, but it's really good.
My number 8 is I'm gonna go with one of the classic, one of the rivals in the neo-prog scene, and a master of their discography in the 2000s, IQ. This band has been one of my absolute favorites for a long while now. I genuinely think that this band has a lot of gold on it. In it, Rhoda Bones is probably my favorite. I love Dark Matter. There's so many albums in their discography I could just talk about forever. But despite all the lineup changes and despite going through so many years, they've been pretty consistent in terms of how they sound. Ever since their inception, they kind of just stuck with the sound of The Last Human Gateway, and they really haven't looked back. So, I mean, really hard to disagree when you find your sound immediately.
Somehow they managed to not make it go stale after 40 years.
No, because each and every single release is just different enough that you're just like, well, it's different enough. There are some albums where they're a little too similar, which is why they're a little further down. I think for me, Frequency, it falls into the fold of it sounds a little bit too much IQ by numbers. I think they have a very good discography, and so generally speaking, other than a few albums that are kind of similar to the point of I've already heard this album before, most of their discography is stand out. Phil, you're number 7.
My number 7 might cause a little controversy from certain people who question whether or not this band is actually prog. I mentioned them already. They were the first prog band I got into. I am talking about Chicago's own Styx.
Oh! Nice.
Started my journey with them with Grand Illusion, fell in love with Fool Yourself, Come Sail Away, Miss America,
All great.
Castle Walls. Went back to Crystal Ball and Equinox. Went back to the early stuff, to their first album, which I think might be their worst album. And then Styx 2, which was phenomenal. Styx 3, Serpent is Rising, and Man of Miracles, which are weird.
I love Serpent is Rising. It's an acquired taste, but it's very good.
Production's not very good on either of them, but they have their gems.
Mm.
Christopher, Mr. Christopher is one of the best songs they've ever done.
Mm.
And then, of course, you go forward. You got Pieces of 8.
Yeah.
Cornerstone, which a lot of people don't like because it's got Babe and First Time, and this is where they've kind of gone, they've softened their sound and drifted away from prog, but there's still some great gems in there.
Yeah.
Paradise Theater is a masterpiece from beginning to end.
Damn.
I know that Kilroy Was Here has a lot of people who hate it. I am not one of them. I fucking love that album. Mr. Roboto is one of my favorite songs of all time. Fucking blow me. After that, it does kind of go a little bit down the tubes. Tommy Shaw leaves the band. They get Glenn Burtnick. That album is okay. It's not great. It's a bit patchy. Then, obviously, John Panazzo dies. They get Todd to replace him on drums. They bring Tommy Shaw back. Brave New World comes out. Not very good. Couple songs that are decent. Overall, kind of a dud. Obviously, they lose Dennis, or they fire Dennis. They replace him with Canada's own Larry Gowan.
Yeah.
Cyclorama.
What do you think of Larry Gowan and his voice and his playing and stuff?
I like him. He's a good singer. I don't necessarily like him in Styx, not necessarily because he's replaced Dennis. I like his solo work better than what he does in Styx. Strange Animal is one of my favorite songs ever.
I got something to add to six when you get done with it.
All
And
right.
everyone's gonna think this is
So after
weird.
that, we get The Mission in 2017, which was, I know a lot of people really like that album. It's got a lot of fans. I think it's half a good album, and the other half feels unfinished.
I think Crash of the Crown is ultimately the better album of the newer Styx era albums.
I would
agree.
absolutely agree with that.
I love I own it.
You're number 7 there, John?
Number 7 is a band not made from the 70s, Jade Warrior. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of this band. I don't know what country. I think they're from the UK. They did the Vertigo label years,
Yeah.
which were like more progressive, and then they did like the Island years, the eclectic version. And basically, this band, I kind of like the middle era a little bit better than the first 3 albums. All the first 3 albums are very good. Kind of like they're still prog.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more like a world fusion. Jade Warrior. They're a band that's brought up from time to time. They're from the 70s. They're semi-popular within the prog realm of the people who know. Kind of, they're not really fully obscure, but they're in the in-between, really obscure and kind of well-known.
Okay.
To be honest. Number 7 is Jade. If you never heard of Jade Warrior, you gotta go check it.
Dad, you're 7?
For 7th, I will go with the Alan Parsons Project. As you know, Zoltan, I'm a fanatic for the Alan Parsons Project.
Right.
Very respectable choice.
And I kind of get a little bit offended when they're not included in Prog because, like, where do they go then? What are they then? And they have all of the, characteristics. If you did the Andy Edwards progometer or what you have, the list of checks that you go down, they would meet every criteria. Yeah, I get it. That's a little bit slightly more into the art rock style, but the way I look at it, Zoe, and I've said this before, is that it's all about just good songwriting.
Right.
And I Robot and Tales of Mystery and Imagination are a couple of the most classic prog albums. And as I've said before, Zoltan, what I think is that Alan Parsons carried on with the Pink Floyd style from Dark Side of the Moon, and they just did it better. You know what I mean? It's like Pink Floyd, but better.
Very strong claim.
I don't hear Pink Floyd in their music except for tiny bits. But
it's the idea it's the ideas of Dark Side of the Moon, but
I get, but that's just his engineering style. That I don't think that had anything to do with Pink Floyd.
Okay. Well, still, I will be number 7, Alan Parsons Project.
Fair enough. My number 7 is a band that you didn't include in yours for the reason that you think the discography is too short. I think that their short discography is actually their strength, and the fact that they're only limited to the 2 albums is a good thing. UK. I'm going with UK. I love the entirety of this album. It is basically perfect. I even think that no, there's no bad moments here. I think Mental Medication is just a very strange and weird song. It's not going to be everyone's first choice, but I think it's a really good way to end the album. It's quirky, very strange. Plus, Danger Money is fantastic. The fact that it's basically the second ELP is kind of funny. It's got Eddie Jobson, Terry Bozzio, and Bill Bruford. I mean, Bill Bruford. John Wetton there. So you can't go wrong with that. It's basically another ELP. I'd even say it competes in some regard. I think that Danger Money album has some of the best material they ever did. And I think that this is just a really good 2 albums to go with. And I just think that they're so strong that they have to be in my top 10. Phil, you're number 6.
All right. My number 6, I can't think of a clever introduction for them, so I'm just going to go into it. Renaissance.
I see. Okay.
Renaissance. Annie Haslam, amazing vocalist, one of the most beautiful vocalists in Prague. I'm not huge, generally speaking, on female singers. Not that I think they're bad by default or anything, but generally their voices are less to my liking as a rule. I don't know why, just how it sounds to me.
Okay.
But Annie's voice is one that I do really love. John Tout, fantastic keyboard player.
Yep.
One of the best in Prague, point blank, period. John Camp does not get the respect and the recognition that he deserves when talking about the great Prague bass players like Squire and Geddy Lee and Mr. Wetton, Greg Lake. The fact that John Camp is not mentioned among them as much as the others is quite frankly a felony.
Okay.
And the music to back it up is the music is absolutely stellar as well. I think from their prologue album up to and including A Song for All Seasons and maybe even Azure Dior, is that the name of the it's some kind of French name that I have trouble pronouncing. But those are all fantastic albums from beginning to end. Ashes Are Burning is one of the greatest songs they've ever put out. I love Mother Russia. Novella as a whole is beautiful. The entire album. Can You Hear Me? A Song for All Seasons. Like, I can see why Northern Lights was a hit single. And it deserved to be. I wish that more of their music got the same recognition that that song did. Because it is so good.
All right, John, you're number 6.
Getting to number 6, progressive power metal band from Germany, Vandenpla. To me, they are the German version of a Dream Theater. In my honest opinion, they are way better than Dream Theater. Fight me. So the lead singer of this band is called, his first name is called
You're gonna have to fight.
Andy, and his last name is called Kuntz, like, but we're not Kuntz, and almost sounds like you're the derogatory form of a woman's bodily organ.
Oh, God.
But anyhow, yeah, I've been a fan of them since 2006, and they're my favorite album by them. I don't have on me. I just pulled this one out. It's a brand new one that came out this year. The Imperial Equation and the Long Lost Things. Cristo, and it's a concept album about Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, and it's kind of told from a different perspective. The singer is very good. He can do rock operas and stuff like that, which he's never released on video. He like does all these rock operas in like Germany and stays theatrical presentation. And for me, Vandenpla is so good, but the singer himself is so theatrical that I just wish I could see him do more, like doing the rock opera type stuff,
Right.
because he has a talent. So that's my number 6.
All right, Dad, you're 6?
I had a lot of trouble here because my number 6, 5, and 4 are kind of interchangeable. You have to pick something, right?
Right.
So for number 6, I will go with Ambrosia.
Yes.
As I said, they could be interchangeable up to number 4, which means that really they could also go as high as number 3 on any given day. I absolutely love Ambrosia, and I think particularly the first Ambrosia album is a classic prog album, and again, leaning towards that more songwriting oriented prog rock, which is what I kind of like myself, right? Not just
Yeah.
It's not about showing, yes, within the song, show us how well you can play, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what prog is about. It's not just about how well you can play. It's not a contest. People listen to music for songs and something that makes them, moves them. But still, they went in that Alan Parsons kind of direction, which I absolutely love. And of course, Christopher North is a fantastic keyboard player. And David Pack is one of my favorite prog singers of all time. So where are we? Number 6? I'll go with Ambrosia.
So my number 6. I couldn't pick between just one. I had to include both because it's so interchangeable and it's directly connected, so I can't really start going ahead and saying no. Porcupine Tree. And of course the Steven Wilson solo stuff. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about any of the Porcupine Tree albums besides On the Sunday of Life. And I don't have anything bad to say about any of the solo albums except for maybe a little bit of the Future Bites here and there. I think that the Harmony Codex is one of the best things he's released in the last 20 years minimum. And I think In Absentia is one of the greatest prog albums of the last 25 years. It's such a staple sound. It's a staple in production-wise, too, because it set a lot of the production quality standards that the 2000s would have in the prog scene. So it's got the heavy elements, it's got the down elements, it's got the beautiful folky passages like Heart Attack and a Lay-By, and it's got a little bit more of the experimental side that you may see with like 90s Crimson, maybe, I guess, Tool in a way, but I think Strip the Soul is a slightly better Tool song. But that's just me. Anyway, plus The Raven That Refused to Sing, Hand Cannot Erase, Harmony Codex, all fantastic. Let's go on. Phil, you're 5. We're entering the big boys.
All right, my number 5. The band that successfully kept prog alive during the 80s. I, of course, am talking about Marillion. I love Marillion. Absolutely love them. Script for a Jester's Tear, Misplaced Childhood, Clutching at Straws, all 3 fantastic albums. Fish is a fantastic songwriter. He is not the best singer, though.
No, I agree.
I do have to say that.
Because I prefer him solo. To be honest, I mean, vocal wise, he's still good at Marillion, but he really nails it in his solo stuff. Like the last 5 or 6 solo albums, early '90s stuff, not so much. 2000 already,
I have no doubt that he got better as he went along because he already started getting better. I'd say Clutching at Straws was his best album with Marillion vocally.
I would agree.
And obviously now we're going to have to go into the Steve Hogarth era, and I love it. I absolutely love Steve Hogarth as a songwriter, as a singer, what he brought to the band, how he shaped the band, which I don't think he shaped them all that much more than what they were already doing on their own. Because if Clutching at Straws and even a little bit on Misplaced Childhood, we already saw that they were heading in the direction that they would eventually define them when Hogarth joined the band, and throughout at least the first bunch of albums that he did with them, Season's End. I'm not going to include Holidays in Eden because that was kind of more of a poppier album that they did to
still followed
kind of
in the
appease
same
their
spirit.
record label.
Yeah.
Like, but I love Easter.
Me too.
I love
King of Sunset
Town,
So good.
The Space. see the title track, Berlin. I can't say a bad thing about any of the songs on Seasons End
Me neither.
or Brave or Afraid of Sunlight, with the exception of Cannibal Surf Babe.
Oh, yeah. All right, fair. All right.
I don't remember that one. I gotta go hear that again. It's been a year.
It's okay, but it's got very much of a throwback to a Beach Boys kind of thing that
Okay.
they throw in
Oh.
at the beginning.
A
And
little. It's like Beach Boys meets Misfits. I like This Strange Engine a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know after that, people are kind of hit or miss on their discography. They do have some duds. I'm not a fan of Radiation. Something Else is not very good, but they also have Anarachnophobia. They also have Marbles, which is one of the greatest prog rock albums of the 21st century, bar none.
I see.
I've heard some of Happiness is the Road. I haven't heard the entire thing.
It's good.
Sounds That Can't Be Made is one that is on my list. I need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent albums, Fear and An Hour Before It's Dark, no notes. Love them. From beginning to end, I absolutely love them. Marillion, my number 5. Very well deserved.
All right.
So,
Dad? Saying?
no, I'm just going to mention that I saw Marillion in a bar in Toronto in the Fish era. It may have been around Misplaced Childhood, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Fish, and he was such a great front man, and he did the Great Cucumber Massacre, and he came up on stage and he did he had a cucumber and he sliced it off and it flung into the audience, and people absolutely loved it. I know it's kind of weird, but I mean, again, I don't know if you realize, Zoe, but this guy's like 6'5", right?
Yeah, he's 6'6".
He's a really huge character, so he had a huge presence on stage.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I saw him again the next year in Toronto at Massey Hall for the Clutching at Straws, and again he had just a huge presence.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, I mean, you've seen the Musical Box.
Yep.
Doing the Peter Gabriel era Genesis, he had the same impact that those Peter Gabriel era Genesis shows had. Right. He came on stage and he had a lot of the makeup stuff going on, and he was impactful. I would say, for me, having seen, I don't know, like 100 concerts in my life, that I would say that Fish is one of the greatest frontmans, not just in prog rock, but in any rock ever. He's a great frontman. Although Steve Hogarth was also good.
Oh, yeah. I saw Marillion live on Cruise to the Edge when I went in March. I already mentioned I went there this past March. I'm going again next April. I'm already like halfway done paying for it, but I digress. Fantastic show. I absolutely loved everything about it. And I got to meet Steve Hogarth and take a photo with him. Dude was so fucking nice. It was insane how nice he was.
All right.
Number 5.
John, you're number 5.
A band from Italy. They have like 8 albums, I believe. I own them all except for 2 of them. The band I'm referencing is Syndone, Syndone.
Oh, I see.
The first two albums have the names like on keys now, Nick something, and the new singer is Ricardo something. Yeah. If you've not heard of this band, they are very classical like in their tone, and all their albums are sung in Italian except the recent one they did a couple years ago. Now they have another one that came out like a greatest hits of 30 years of all their stuff. That I don't count that as a studio, called Kama Sutra, which the Hindu art of making love, or whatever you want to call it. That one was in English, and that's the first album I ever heard by the band. And the singer, when I heard that, I had to get all the rest of the albums. They're all in Italian other than that one.
Right.
Reminds me of Led Zeppelin meets Queen on vocals gone prog with a hard rock sound with classical fused on
Nice.
that one particular album. But yeah, if you never heard this band, oh my god, you got to drop
Very
it
descriptive.
Yeah.
and hear them.
All right.
Yes, that's 5.
Dad, you're number 5.
Number
Okay.
5?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. I will go with Camel.
All right.
As you know, Zoe, I'm a massive Camel fan. They kind of fit into the sort of Genesis kind of area, but with a little bit of Canterbury thrown in here and there, but sort of light symphonic prog with lots of that English pastoral kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we did our best Camel albums.
Yeah.
I love the late 70s, early 80s albums the best. I mean, I Can See Your House from Here is my favorite.
Me too.
But I also have a love for the mid 70s things like Mood Madness and Snow Goose. Love them all.
Yep.
And we know, I don't know what's going, I haven't checked lately, but I know Andy Latimer was sick, so we don't know where they are in terms of carrying on.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly hope they do, because even though into the 90s and into the early 2000s, the albums have still been good.
Yeah.
Although I would prefer that Andy Latimer not sing and get real singers in, like David Payton and stuff, you know, because he's an okay singer. But
they
not
still
great.
have Colin Bass. They should be using Colin Bass.
Colin Bass, yeah.
Colin
I was
Bass
gonna
is
say
good.
get Chris Rainbow back, but I'm pretty sure
He's
he
dead.
died.
He's passed away,
He's dead.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Colin Bass is
Resurrect
literally
him and get him back.
Colin Bass is probably like his solo stuff. I'm not kidding you. I mean, when I hear his voice, he literally sounds like the reincarnation of David Sylvian. If you've not heard of David Sylvian, go listen to David Sylvian and then go listen to the last 2 solo albums by Colin Bass. Their vocals sound almost not identical, but very similar, identical in tone.
All right. I think I'm gonna move on to my number 5, and I've had a chance to listen to their discography a lot recently. So, this band, I've seen them live once. They were very good. I think I saw them with Glass Hammer's singer, and I believe it was after their bass player passed away. Yes, I love Yes. I think that, generally speaking, after listening to their entire discography for the worst to best that we're going to be doing with Phil, John, if you want in on that too, you can join in. But that's fine. Generally speaking, though, I think that there's a lot of gold from this band. I think Fly From Here is absolutely a fantastic record. Close to the Edge is a staple of the 70s. Fragile, same. I think that the 80s and 90s get a little bit too much hate. I think 90125 and Big Generator are very good. I love Talk. And I mean, even a little bit of Open Your Eyes has some really great material. Too bad it didn't stick that way. But anyway, 3 good songs, and that's about it. I'll continue on with Yes when we do the worst to best. But I love Yes. I think that they're very strong. And I think Mirrors to the Sky is very good. I think that if they can just solidify what they found that is good on Mirrors to the Sky, they can make a modern classic. With that, Phil, how about you go to your number 4, yeah?
All right. My number 4 was briefly talked about before by somebody else in this panel.
Yeah.
And of course, that is Jethro Tull.
I see.
I absolutely love Jethro Tull. I have not listened to much of the albums that came out recently, the last 2. I heard some of the first one since the reunion, and I liked some stuff. Some stuff I didn't. I have not listened to their latest one yet at all. But going back to the early stuff, I mean, even before Aqualung, you have This Was, which is not really a prog album. It's more of a like blues rock with jazz fusion type of deal. It's really fun. There's some really fun flute stuff on it. Obviously, it's not Martin Barr yet. It's Mick Abraham. And then you have Stand Up when Martin Barr does come in. That's when things really start to go into the prog direction a little bit. Benefit is even better. With You There to Help Me is one of my favorite Jethro Tull songs.
Yep.
Of course, Aqualung is classic from beginning to end. The title track, Locomotive Breath.
Yeah.
No notes, nothing bad to say about it. Thick as a Brick, obviously one of the greatest prog rock albums ever. And I find it hilarious that their attempt at making a joke prog concept album is better than most real prog concept albums.
That's funny. I do find that fun.
Which is actually hilarious considering the Passion Play, the follow-up, is
My favorite.
not nearly as good.
Oh,
I like Passion Play first and then Thick as a Brick second. There's a reason why. Passion Play was the first album I ever heard by Tull. And then Thick as a Brick second. So if I would have heard it the other way around.
My first was Aqualung.
all right. Fair enough.
I'm nervous.
But Thick as a Brick is probably my favorite, at least before we get into the trilogy with David Palmer or D. Palmer, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
as a full member of the band. Those 3 albums are stellar from beginning to end. And a lot of people kind of cut off their enjoyment of Tull at that point. But I honestly really like A, the one that was originally supposed to be an Ian Anderson solo album. And Broadsword and the Beast is fantastic from beginning to end. I absolutely love that album. And of course, Ian Anderson, amazing singer when he was an amazing singer. Still an amazing flute player. Martin Barr, iconic guitar player. That's really all I got.
All right.
Jethro Tull, number 4.
All right, John, you're number 4.
Number 4 has been a band that's been my favorite for a long time, since I was about my 18, almost 20. I was exposed to them at a very young age when I was first getting into prog. They're from Mexico. You hardly ever hear this band brought up at all. They're definitely neo-prog. They started out in the 80s, and the album I got into the band was called Angels and Demons. The band I'm referring to is called Cast, C-A-S-T. They're a symphonic prog band, and some of their albums are neo-ish. Now, after Al Bandalist came out, which is sung in all Mexican, they started doing every other album or every other couple albums were in English, and then the other ones were in Spanish. And their last one they did was from 2021. It's very symphonic. It's got violin. Like I said, if you've never heard Cast, they're from Mexico. I, by God, encourage people to check this band out. They're one of the most underrated sleeper hits. So yeah, Cast, C-A-S-T, Mexico.
Dad,
from Mexico.
You're number 4.
My number 4 is Yes.
Okay.
I know we're getting far up the list here, but I got things ahead. So at number 4, I have Yes. I know it's a classic band, but it's not the best progressive rock band, but pretty close. Number 4, Yes.
All right. My number 4 is going to be the Alan Parsons Project. I love all of this. I love Tales of Mystery and Imagination. I love iRobot. I love Pyramid, and most of their discography is pretty much listenable. And I mean, they have so much gold in there. They have a lot of the art rock sensibilities that I absolutely love. The classical pieces here are so weirdly, just so engagingly good. And this album is perfect, I'd say. iRobot is also fantastic. Nothing bad about their discography, except for maybe one album that they just were forced to release.
Of course, you can't forget the best album of all time, the
Sicilian
Sicilian Defense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best album of all time. The best. It's amazing. It's electric. This is the best shit I've ever heard. But you know, it's what it is. What it is. I love Alan Parsons' project. It's very good stuff. Phil, you're number 3. We're entering the very
All
big
right.
territory.
We have entered the top 3.
All right.
Now, my top 3 are pretty much essentially just one big number 1.
Yeah,
they're like dead even tied for number 1.
Same.
And so they like fluctuate a lot depending on like how much I listen to one, how much I listen to another. But I put them, to make it easy, I put them in the order they are in on average. But
Okay.
they fluctuate like weekly pretty much. And with that being said, number 3 is IQ.
All right.
I absolutely have almost nothing bad to say about IQ at all. I love their first album. I love their last album. I'm excited as hell for their next album. Everything in between is fucking gold, with the exception of the 2 Manel albums. And even then, there are still some really good gems on there. I am not going to go too far into this because we are planning on doing an IQ worst to best. That's where my in-depth analysis of their discography, even this isn't really in-depth, but a more in-depth analysis of their discography will come into play. I will save that for then. Number 3 is IQ. Next.
John, you're number 3. Go
Number
on.
three, Carpathin. Anthony
right.
Kalugin from Ukraine. They are a really good band I got into. The keyboard player's got some solo stuff. And to me, he is literally the second coming of Thomas Bodine from the Flower Kings, which we know that band's going to be mentioned very soon.
Yep.
But yeah, Carpathin, very good band. Their music kind of sounds different on each album. They have a camel vibe sometimes. Sometimes they get a fusion vibe. To me, at times they sound like a cross between Flower Kings and Camel when they need to be. And they're my number 3.
All right. Dad, you're number 3.
My number 3 is Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Nice.
For me, Keith Emerson invented prog. I mean, he basically invented it. I'm sort of sick and tired at my age of hearing that King Crimson and Robert Fripp invented prog. I don't think so.
Robert Fripp can bite me. The only good album by Crimson is Islands. You can bite me, world.
Yeah.
Keith Emerson with the Nice is the origin of all that is prog, and he went on to form this incredible supergroup that created, Tarkus and Brain Cell Liturgy, which are up there with the greatest prog albums of all time. So ELP is number 3 for me.
All right. My number 3, I'm going to go with Camel. I love this band. This is one of my all-time favorites. I love I Can See Your House From Here, Nude, Single Factor are all fantastic. I love Rain Dances, Moon Madness. I don't think I can name anything terrible about their discography. There's not a single album where I'm just like, oh, this is crap. I love everything about their music. They're smooth, they're easy listening, they're very classically prog in so many ways. They're like Alan Parsons' project, but you turn up the prog on them a little bit more, and they're really good. And especially the ones with Richard Sinclair in there. He was just a very perfect addition there, and I mean, I think he just fit. it worked for 2 albums. They did Rain Dances and Breathless, and the Canterbury Feel worked. But I think that
Breathless is the one Camel album that I have, and I love it.
it's fantastic. All right, Phil, you're number 2. Here we go.
All right. Again, I'm going to cut this short because this is obviously going to be worst to best we're going to be doing very soon.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 is Yes.
I see.
My second prog band ever. Fell in love with albums like Relayer and Close to the Edge and Fragile and Going for the One. I love the absolute shit out of Drama. I think that Yes can make some fantastic music both with and without John Anderson, and anybody who says otherwise is fucking dumb.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like even up to now, you mentioned Fly From Here, fantastic album. Near to the Sky is great. The Quest is really good as well. With that being said, stay tuned for the Yes Worst to Best. I will cover this deeper.
There you go. All right, John, you're number 2.
Number 2, Kaipa. Now, this band came out in the 70s. I discovered Kaipa after I discovered Flower Kings, which is we know where that's going next. This is my favorite album by Kaipa. They came out in the 70s. This is called Keyholder. It's the return of Roy Stolt is on this one, but the album before it was Notes from the Past where Roy returned. Roy Stolt was on the 3 albums by Kaipa, and then they got the other guy on guitar and I think vocals from Scar Symmetry, which is a melodic death metal out of Sweden. But in my honest opinion, the singer also in Kaipa now on this is now the singer Taking for Ritual, which just came out with a new album recently. I love Kaipa to death. I own almost every album except for like 2 or 3, and I finally got one of my albums I've been looking for 10 years. It's been out of print for a decent price. That was Satige. I think that would be my second favorite by Kaipa, and then the second album by Kaipa in the 70s is my third favorite.
All right.
So number 2, Kaipa.
Dad, you're number 2.
My number 2 will be Gentle Giant.
All right.
Respectable. Very respectable.
I love all of the medieval sort of, classical type influences and all of the Baroque influences. And I like that mixing in with all of the sort of modernist classical influences that they have, and all of the weird vocals and all of the weird and everything that they do. And I mean, Zoe, what can you say about Gentle Giant? It's just like one of those bands. There's not much to say about it. Just like listen to it. It's one of the greatest. Again, the idea of prog rock is to mix classical music with rock and pop and jazz, and they do it to perfection.
Oh, there you go.
So, Gentle Giant number 2.
My number 2, I'm going to go with Genesis. I love Genesis. Everything from Trespass to Duke is pretty much perfect. I love Abacab as much. Just about as much. Mama is okay. And I think that there's a lot of gold on everything that they released. I don't think that they actually have a true dud, maybe the debut, but we'll do a Genesis worst to best sometime soon. And we're gonna get to everyone's number 1 now. Phil.
My number 1 is Genesis.
Yeah.
Pretty much Zoltan started off pretty strong with what he said. I agree that pretty much everything from, I'm not going to say Trespass is perfect. Like they were starting to find their sound, but they still had some work to be done. Same thing with Nursery Crime, although they got a lot stronger with the addition of Hackett and Collins. And so basically from Foxtrot to Duke, straight perfection. Even and then there were 3. I know some people have issues with songs like
Nursery
Many
Crime.
Too Many and Follow You, Follow Me.
Nursery Crime is so good.
It is, but it's not perfect.
Ah, yeah, I guess.
We know that.
And then, like he said, also Abacab is fantastic. I love almost every song on that album, and the one that I don't is obviously Who Done It.
Yeah,
That song is fucking garbage.
yeah, that song is redundant trash, and
Agreed.
I love the self-titled album from '83
it's not bad.
very
No.
much.
It's good stuff.
Invisible Touch,
Has some moments of greatness.
it has its moments. We Can't Dance also has its moments. And I'm going to also kind of disagree in saying that Genesis has never released a dud. Obviously, their debut.
Yeah.
And I find it very hard to truly say a good thing about fucking Calling All Stations. I don't like that album at all. Nothing about it. Most of the rest of their catalog is well more than strong enough to make up for that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it well deserves the #1 spot on my list.
Mm-hmm.
We will get more
There.
in depth when we do the Genesis worst to best. All of my top 3 are worst to best that we're going to do. And
Yeah,
I'm going to be a part
I know.
of.
All right,
Oh,
John,
nice.
your number one.
Number 1, Flower Kings. And I'm
Mhm.
holding up Rainmaker because I don't have the Summon No Evil near me. Rolling Stone. The greatest band of all times, Pete Pardo from Theatre. We're going to have internet beef. So if you're seeing this, #1 band of all times. Yeah. All their albums are too long. They're con. They need to take a 5-year hiatus before they make another album. No, they don't.
John,
Bite me, blow me, whatever.
we got the worst to best.
Flower King.
Don't worry, we'll get your detailed opinions of all the albums.
Boy.
Well, there you go. Your number one, Flower Kings. Dad, your number one.
Always, Jolie. It's very simple for me. My #1 band of all time, always Genesis.
There you go.
Hey, my man.
Yeah.
Genesis defines what prog is. Ronnie Banks is my favorite keyboard player ever. I'm not sure he's the greatest keyboard player ever, but because Keith Emerson is right there, and Keith and Rick Wakeman and Eddie Jobson are also absolutely fantastic. But the songwriting, the style, basically, Genesis created the style of what people think is progressive rock. And, I personally think that it's the best, but, again, that's just my personal opinion, and I get that that's the idea. But for me, #1 is Genesis.
And my number one
Is Genesis.
is the Flower Kings.
Yes,
I love
you.
My number 2, it was Genesis. My number 1 is the Flower
Oh, I
Kings.
missed that part.
I
know.
love Flower Kings. I love the guy.
I know.
He's absolutely amazing, and you know that.
I know.
John, you know that I love that band, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I know that you guys should know I love the band.
Yeah.
I love retro prog.
It's
Anybody who's copying the greats, that's what I love.
These guys are just taking everything that the greats were doing and basically just making it in the modern day. Stardust We Are it has everything that you want. It has a little bit of Yes. When listening back to a lot of the Yes catalog, I hear a lot, and I mean a lot, of Yes influences and Steve Howe influences on Roy's guitar playing, especially on later, especially like the late 2000, like 22, like the 2020 albums and the 90s albums. I hear a lot of the Steve Howe-ish kind of feel in his guitar playing. He gets a little bit more of the jazz fusion sound in the early 2000s with Unfold the Future and Summon No Evil. But Stardust We Are is always fantastic from front to back. They have some of the best epics in prog, I'd say. Stardust We Are is an obvious classic. Same with Garden of Dreams. These guys just take what I love about all the classic bands like Genesis, Yes, ELP, Pink Floyd, and they just meld it with a little bit of the modern sensibility, which is one of the reasons why I probably listen to them just a little bit more than anyone else. But there you go. That's our list. How did everyone feel? This is Philip's debut. How are you feeling about your debut here, Phil?
I felt pretty good. This was fun.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to doing some more episodes with you guys,
Yeah.
especially the 3 worst to best we've already talked about doing together.
This has been the top 10 prog bands where we mentioned a few honorable mentions. It was pretty fun. Phil's introductory episode debut.
See you soon, John. See you soon.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all very much
And
for
don't
watching.
see John again.
Jeez. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Or if you